I've got a plan for an expedient rocket stove that you can build in about 10 minutes that will really efficiently use just sticks and scraps of wood that you have laying around to build a soup like this in about 30 minutes. Hey Provident Preppers, I'm Jonathan, and let's just imagine for a moment that you find yourself in a situation where you need to do some cooking, outdoor cooking, and you want to do it on a rocket stove. I just gathered up stuff that we had laying around, and that's the goal, is being able to take stuff that you can find, even if you don't have stored fuel or some nicer things to work with, you have something that you can put together and use it as a rocket stove. So let's go. One of the really great things about these rocket stoves is they're just very efficient because we're blowing that fire, we're getting lots of heat, we're using our fuel much more efficiently. And what we can use for fuel is just stuff we have laying around. Branches that have dropped, prunings from your orchard, whatever, is just an awesome way to go. So as far as building this thing, it was very simple. We start with a good foundation. We decided to use it on our fire pit here with the cover, because it'll help create a nice height, and those ashes are just going to drop down into the fire pit. So I started the first layer with just 3 bricks and then a partial brick here, because this one has to allow for this opening. And then there's just 4 bricks stacked on each layer, covering those joints so that we don't have 2 joints that are in the same place. And so we create a very strong structure, and it's at a nice height. And so this just turned out really awesome as far as the height and the chimney. You can go as high as you want. We could go another 3 or 4 layers high, or if you only have enough for 2 or 3 layers, whatever you've got, it's better than nothing, and you can make that work. Let's talk just a minute about fire management, because that is an important consideration here. To get this thing started, I started with some fire starter in a wad of paper and put that down the chimney. Then I put other small material on top of that to get it going, just like you would with any other fire. You start small with smaller sticks, and that can be fed down the top until you're ready to cook, and then it's obviously a lot harder. Then you're going to be feeding it from right here. This does require some tending. Unlike some other cooking methods, you do have to keep pushing these sticks in. And one thing that I do like about having it on this grate here is the ashes are falling out, and I've also got air that's able to come in from underneath. If you're doing it with a different method, you might need to manage that, because sometimes you get too much wood in this chute and you're actually inhibiting the airflow. And so you need to make sure that you can have that constant fast airflow that's going in for combustion air. But that's pretty straightforward. It does take a little tending, and with our Bear River rocket stove that we'll show you at some point in the future in one of these, it became a fun thing for the grandkids. The grandkids just had a great time. Of course, they needed a little training on what not to touch and what to touch, but that's how this thing works, is we just keep feeding the fuel in, and it does an awesome job. Let's talk just a minute about the cooking aspect of this. It was kind of fun because when we got this thing going, it only took about 3 or 4 minutes, and we had it hot enough so that we could start sauteing the onions and the other things that needed to be sauteed. It just really didn't take very long at all, and it's fun because you hear this throaty sound as this thing really gets going. It takes a minute to get going, but once it gets going, you have this throaty sound. You can tell that it's just pulling that air in, and it's really heating up fast. But we got this soup started. This is a nice thing to cook on this kind of a stove, because it's a little more forgiving. If you're cooking something like a grilled cheese sandwich or something like that, you're going to have to manage the temperature a little more closely. A soup is super easy because we just put it on here and it does its thing. We just keep feeding the fuel in to make sure it does its job, but it does require a little practice. So I would encourage you, if you can, to do a little practice. Build one of these. If you look online, you can probably find somebody who's throwing away a bunch of brick. Just have a few of them around that you could make one and try it, and it just is going to be an awesome soup. Well, there you have it. This is a very efficient rocket stove, put together really quickly. If I had my druthers, I'd probably use fire brick instead of just regular brick. I think that would be better. I would have a grill here that's the right size, but this is what I had at a moment's notice, and sometimes that's what we have to do. We use what we have. So this thing took about 10 minutes to build or less. This pot of soup's been on for about 25 minutes, and it's done and ready to go. So very efficiently we cooked this just using stuff we had laying around, sticks, twigs, orchard prunings, and it was awesome. So it really comes down to what we know. Sometimes it's not what we have, but it's what we know, the principles, understanding principles that allows us to do great things. So now for the question of the day, for those of you who have used rocket stoves, what can you add to this discussion? Let's continue this discussion and get more ideas. And thanks for being part of the solution.